In her community, California caregiver Jenna Baker earned the affectionate nickname of a super nanny due to her boundless love, quick thinking, and her ability to respond to emergencies with calm precision. It was these very traits that, some would argue, may have saved the life of a 3-year-old child she was caring for during a particularly harrowing and dangerous situation. For Jonathan Lee and his wife, raising their lively and energetic son while juggling demanding careers proved to be no small feat. The couple wanted nothing more than to be present for every moment of their child's life. But they knew that was not always possible given their professional commitments. As much as they both wished they could be there for their son around the clock, they understood that balancing work with family time was a constant struggle. They made every effort to adjust their schedules in a way that allowed at least one of them to be home at all times, ensuring their child would never be left alone. However, the realities of their careers meant there were times when this simply wasn't feasible. After careful consideration, they decided to hire a nanny who could provide the loving care and attention their son needed when they were both away at work. In addition to the essential qualifications and training, they wanted someone who possessed that natural, almost instinctive, ability to connect with children, someone who had the nurturing heart of a mother and a deep understanding of child development. That's when they discovered Jenna Baker, a well-respected childcare professional with years of experience in their local area. From the moment Jenna began working for the Lee family, it was clear that she had a special way with their son. The connection between them was immediate. And from the very first day, it was evident that their son felt safe, comfortable, and loved in her care. Jenna quickly became an integral part of their family, and Jonathan and his wife were deeply grateful for the peace of mind she provided, knowing that their child was in such capable hands, especially during the long hours they were at work, was a tremendous comfort. Jenna's approach to childcare was not only kind and patient but also filled with a nurturing protectiveness that set her apart from many others in the profession. Her calm demeanor and instinctive understanding of children's needs gave her the ability to respond to situations with an unparalleled sense of assurance. One of the things that made Jenna stand out was her ability to transform every day into a fun-filled adventure. Whether it was taking walks around the neighborhood, visiting the local park, or exploring the outdoors, Jenna kept their son constantly engaged with a wide range of activities. The little boy adored his time with Jenna, who always seemed to have a new craft, game, or project to introduce. With Jenna, no 2 days were ever the same, and her creativity and enthusiasm seemed endless. As the months went by, Jenna and their son formed a deep bond, one built on trust, affection, and a shared love of discovery. By the time Jenna had been with the Lee family for over a year, she had become much more than just a nanny. She was a cherished member of their family. Word of her extraordinary skill and her innate ability to care for children spread quickly throughout the Irvine neighborhood. And soon Jenna was known far and wide as one of the most exceptional nannies in the area. Her reputation for being reliable, skilled, and compassionate solidified her standing as a childcare professional. And it was clear that her services would only continue to be in high demand in the years to come. On a blistering July day in 2017, Jenna and the young child she cared for had been running errands around town. The heat of the day weighed heavily on them as they completed their tasks. As the afternoon wore on, they made a snap decision to cut their plans short and head home earlier than originally anticipated. Neither Jenna nor the child could have predicted that this seemingly innocent change of plans would lead to a harrowing encounter that would leave them both shaken. As they neared the house, Jenna felt an uneasy knot twist in her stomach. She couldn't quite put her finger on it. But something felt wrong. Her instincts, honed by years of caring for children, screamed at her to be cautious. A sense of foreboding washed over her. But she could not identify what had triggered it. Regardless, she tried to push aside the discomfort as they approached the front door. But before she could voice her unease, the young child had already bounded ahead and run into the house, his small feet echoing through the front yard. Jenna picked up her pace, her heart beginning to race as the familiar sense of dread intensified. Something was off, and her instincts were pushing her to act. She quickened her steps, trying to catch up with the child who was already inside the house. But as she entered the home, the unsettling feeling didn't fade, it grew stronger. The first sign that something was wrong came when a strange noise echoed from upstairs. Sharp and disconcerting. Jenna froze for a moment, her eyes darting upward, searching for the source. Her pulse quickened as she felt an icy chill creeping up her spine. She instinctively called for the child to come to her, her voice shaky but urgent, trying to draw him closer. But the child, unaware of any danger, had already started to descend the staircase. And that's when she saw him. A man appeared at the top of the stairs, his sudden presence causing a surge of panic to rise in Jenna's chest. His eyes locked onto hers with a cold, calculating stare. Jenna's heart skipped a beat as her worst fears were confirmed. They were in immediate danger. Her mind raced for a plan, but her body was already acting on its own. As the young boy began to descend further, Jenna rushed forward, grabbing his hand and pulling him back toward her with a force she didn't know she had. "Run," she shouted, her voice filled with a desperate urgency. Jenna's maternal instincts kicked into high gear. She could feel the adrenaline surging through her veins as she swept the child into her arms, clutching him tightly against her chest. Without a second to lose, she bolted for the front door, her feet pounding against the floor as she desperately sought an escape. Behind her, the sound of footsteps grew louder. Someone was following them. Her breath came in short, frantic bursts, her chest tightening as she tried to push herself to run faster. As they burst out of the house and into the yard, the sound of the man's footsteps seemed to fade into the distance. Jenna's heart still thundered in her ears. But for a brief moment, it seemed as though they had escaped. Just as she reached the neighbor's house, gasping for air and her pulse still racing, a neighbor appeared. Noticing the panic in her eyes, the concerned neighbor asked what had happened and if she was okay. Jenna could barely catch her breath, the weight of the fear and stress pressing down on her. She stumbled into the neighbor's home, grateful for the safety it offered, even if it was only temporary. Inside, Jenna collapsed into a chair, her shaking hands clutching the child protectively. Her mind was a blur of confusion and fear. What had just happened? Why had the man been in the house? What was he looking for? But at that moment, none of those questions mattered. All that mattered was that she and the young child were safe. Still trembling, Jenna called the police and relayed the frightening events. She also contacted the Lee family, sharing the terrifying story. In the sanctuary of the neighbor's home, they were able to finally take a moment to breathe, knowing they had escaped the worst, at least for now. Even though the police were on the scene as quickly as they could, The man had already left the residence when they got there. The family immediately left work to help Jenna at the neighbor's house after learning the news. They were really appreciative that she had protected their son and expressed their sincere regret for putting her in this predicament in the first place. Jenna gave the parents as much information as she could recall. But they were still unaware of the terrifying reality that she and their kid had to deal with. Jonathan Lee wanted to ask her a number of questions regarding the incident. But he refrained because he could tell she was still frightened by the experience. Above all, he had no idea why this attack had been directed at them. While the police investigated the site, Jenna, the boy, and the parents went back to the house together. A search warrant for a suspect was confirmed by the police. They were looking for a guy African American, between the ages of 18 and 25, who was wearing a polka dot rucksack and weighed about 170 pounds, 80 kilograms. The Lee family never thought someone would show up at their house without warning. When the father understood that his family had been singled out, a cold perspiration appeared on his brow. What if everyone had been at home? What if the nanny hadn't recognized the threat and rescued their son so quickly? The Lee family felt intimidated and violated as they watched the police search their house for clues and take fingerprints in an attempt to identify the burglar. Jonathan Lee said how the intruder had completely destroyed his sense of safety in their house, leaving him feeling exposed and uncomfortable. Jonathan Lee was extremely upset and wanted to make sure that his family wouldn't experience another assault of this nature. He wanted to assist the authorities with their investigation. But they were at a standstill without any additional clues. If only they knew a little more. The father recalled that he had placed covert cameras in the house just a few months prior after speaking with the police in great detail. He had forgotten everything about the cameras and had never checked them before. When Jonathan looked at the pictures, he noticed a terrible scene in the kitchen. The intruder smashed a window in an attempt to enter the property. When it didn't work, he entered via a glass door. It was shocking and frightening that the entire sequence of events took place in broad daylight. The burglar began in the kitchen, where he found the nanny's purse and dumped it on the counter in an attempt to find valuables. What did he want to find? What was it he desired? The father felt his heart racing. Unsatisfied, he walked the remainder of the house, even peeking into the child's room, while he watched the burglar move through the living room, looking for anything important. The offender was obviously a thorough criminal who left no space unexplored. As the video went on, the parent saw that the thief was always on his phone, looking about the room as though he was speaking to someone. To whom was he speaking? Did anyone else participate in this break-in? The robber must have understood he had been unwelcome all of a sudden. He instantly ran down the stairs and reached the front door, following Jenna Baker, who was racing and carrying the youngster in a hurry. As soon as he heard the nanny return with the child, just a few seconds after the nanny and the toddler left, he walked out the front door. The family was aware that they had to take action to stop the terrifying tragedy from happening again. In an effort to prevent future break-ins, they made the decision to install more cameras around their property in order to improve home security. The Lee family was extremely appreciative to Jenna Baker despite their residual anxiety and doubt. They adored her and called her their super nanny because of how much they loved and cared for their young kid. Jenna's bravery and fast thinking had prevented a potentially dangerous situation and saved their son. Jenna, however, maintained her modesty and insisted that she was only carrying out her duties. She was quite fond of the boy and took her duty to keep him safe very seriously. Her valiant actions gave the Lee family comfort in knowing their kid was receiving the care he needed. After watching the story above, do you have any thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. If you enjoyed our video, please like, subscribe, and share our channel. That's all about today's stories. See you next time.